Alright, good morning, young scholars. This is Mr. Granlund. I'm going to take you through some of the properties of water and how we're going to use them in our painting. So watercolor is beautiful chemistry. Okay, we're going to start off with a close look at H2O. You probably all heard that H2O is what water is. In science, what we like to do is we like to take a really close look at water. And if we get super close, we can see that there's an oxygen, there's just one of them, and there's two hydrogens. So we get two H's, and we have one O to make H2O. Now the way that these things are put together and hold together through something called hydrogen bonds and ionic transfer and things like that, the way it does that gives us all these cool properties of water. So let's talk about it. Well, first of all, water is a solvent. That's the whole reason why we can take water, put it into these little cake things here, and it dissolves the paint. And when it dissolves, it's like Kool-Aid, you know? It becomes part of the liquid. This is really unique. So anytime you've made Kool-Aid, you have actually made a solvent and you've used the dissolving properties of water. And you notice that when you drink Kool-Aid, it doesn't taste all grainy or, powdery or anything like that. It just tastes like a liquid. That's because the powder is dissolved in the solvent we call water. Now water is also sticky. So like when you do things, like you take your hand, you put it in a lake, it gets wet. You may say to yourself, well, this is not all that interesting, Mr. Granlund. I know that when I put my hand in water, it's going to get wet. But when we do that, it actually tells us something about water. So this is the thing called adhesion. So, if I spit on a wall, my spit's going to stick to the wall because it's mostly water, and that's adhering to the surface. Or when I put my hand in a lake or something, I get wet. That's because the water is actually sticking to the surface of my skin. Okay? And this is why when we paint, it sticks to the paper. It doesn't, stand up, but sometimes it does stand. It doesn't go to the surface. And that's what we call a resist. So we actually put a barrier of tape in between the paper and the watercolor. And we do this for artistic reasons. We know that it's not going to go through the tape. And we can create designs by using this resist. Now there's also something interesting about this marker that I'm using. This marker also is not water soluble. So that means it's not going to dissolve in water. There's certain kind of compounds that work this way. But if I paint across the tape here, the tape resists the water and it leaves the paper underneath completely clean. Now if I pull this tape up, you can see that it leaves that paper completely clean. And we use this property of this resisting the water in order to make our birch trees. And we obviously use the adhesion property of water so that when we paint, it makes our paper colorful. And we use the solvent properties of water to mix our colors together. Now, cohesion. So water is sticky to other water. I'm going to do a little experiment on my paper here. So I'm going to take some water. I'm going to put it on here. Okay. Now this is on top of a resist. It's just a droplet of water. Here's another droplet of water. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull these droplets of water. So I'm going to use the adhesion property of water by touching the brush to it. I'm going to pull it towards the other drop of water, and these two drops of water should make one drop of water. Okay? Come on, little drops of water. Look at that. Here I go. I'm cohesioning the water together. because water is sticky to other water. Well, so what? Who cares about that? Well, that's the property that we use to do the technique called wet into wet. So if I paint an area of paper with just plain water, when I drop the color onto this area, it's gonna spread out. We can actually see a chemical reaction happening with the water because we've colored it. So here we go, okay? I'm gonna just drop some color into this area here, and you see how it spreads out? It spreads out in that direction because on an atomic level, the water is getting drawn to each other through its hydrogen bonds. Now, when all this water evaporates, it leaves us with the color, and the color adheres to the paper, and that's what creates our beautiful art. And so that's how we use the properties of water to make our art.